to Victress FM, brought to you by Victress Entrepreneurs. Here's your host, single mum, entrepreneur and brain injury survivor, Michelle Williams.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Victress FM, where every week I'll be introducing you to inspiring women who have refused to give up and have gone after their dreams even in the face of extreme adversity. And this week I was joined by the incredible Kelly Brealey, who is a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist and whose life passion it is to help others overcome adversity. Kelly has an incredibly inspiring story of triumph over adversity, having turned the pain of childhood trauma into power by helping others learn how to turn their own adversity to advantage. And in this episode, we talk about the steps that we can all take to stay in control no matter what our circumstances. I found Kelly's story to be so inspiring, and I'm sure that you will too. Enjoy. So welcome to Victress FM, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm really looking forward to diving in and hearing a little bit more about your story, because I've got like a brief synopsis of some of the challenges that you've gone through in your own life. And I'm really interested in finding out from women, entrepreneurial women, what challenges they've gone through and how that has actually shaped them to become who they are today and sort of taken them onto their entrepreneurial path. So I'd really love it if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about your Victress story with us.
Absolutely. It's quite a long and in-depth story, so I'll give you as much of an abridged version as I can. Essentially, as a 9-year-old child, I endured sustained sexual abuse at a time while my parents were going through a divorce. And concurrently, unfortunately, there are a lot of other male friends of the family who saw their opportunity to take advantage of a vulnerable young girl. So that kind of led to some emotional upset at a really young age. And at 13, I was diagnosed with depression. The unfortunate thing is my mum was dealing with her own mental health issues at that stage, so I never got any treatment. After having my mum have a breakdown with an argument that she'd had with a neighbour, and my mum almost shooting the neighbour and me fearing that she was going to shoot myself, my brother and my sister, and then possibly herself, mum was then admitted to hospital and diagnosed with, at the time, manic depression, which is now known as bipolar. So due to the issues mum was having, I joined the Navy at 17. I needed to get away from home. In that time, I met a man who seemed to say all the right things, but I managed to get 2 beautiful children out of that relationship, but unfortunately he was violent. So I got the courage to finally leave him after he tried to strangle me. And then I spent some time on my own, had a couple of other really poor relationships, which I believe were stemming from the bad image I had of men growing up and my abuse patterns.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one of the men that I had just started seeing, he raped me, and that was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with, because I felt as a child I couldn't protect myself, but as an adult, I actually should have protected myself. So that's taken a real lot of soul searching. And then,
I suppose you were like self-blaming and things like that then in that case.
Very much. It's, and I guess a lot of rape victims go through that same thing, that I should have fought, why didn't I fight? So I struggled with that. But then later on, I met an amazing man, and we'd been together for 6 years and everything was going fantastic. And I thought I was on top of the world. I was nursing at the time and decided that I wanted to study my degree in nursing, but at the same time I wanted to study a diploma of interior design and start my own business, plus juggling permanent night shift with nursing and my 3 children and my husband's 2 children.
Trying to do everything.
Yeah, I thought I could do everything, and then I did the worst thing ever. Basically, the way I describe it, and it's the only way I can describe it, is that my brain took a vacation and I had absolutely no control over what I was doing. I rung up a massive phone bill. I spent a lot of money, and I did the worst thing I could ever do, which was I actually cheated on my partner.
Wow.
And then the realization of what I had done and what I had risked, and that I couldn't understand why I would do that, sent me into a really deep depression, and I was suicidal. Back when I was married previously, because of the depression, I'd actually tried to take my own life back then, but I was lucky that a passerby had found me. So then to be back in that situation again, where I was trying to work out who am I, because what I had done went against everything I believed in. It just sent me into a massive depression, and I was subsequently diagnosed with bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a form of OCD called pure obsessional. So my fear is
this kind of all like stemming from what happened in your childhood as well?
Yes. So when all this came about, I brought it up to my family, and there's been a long history of abuse in my family, and nothing was ever done about it. So I believe that facilitated my perception growing up that this is normal, and it's not normal. So no, and so I went to the police about it after 22 years, and that took so much courage. But in the process of them investigating, my younger sister had a severe asthma attack at 33, and she passed away in front of me. Wow. And left behind her 3 young children, who my mum at 60 with ailing health conditions had to then take on the care of them. So in my grief, I turned to alcohol and food, and I used external substances to change my internal feelings and emotions, and I gained a massive amount of weight. I had a lot of health issues. I then really doubted all of my abilities. I thought, was I actually as talented as I thought I was, or was that just the bipolar? It was kind of like it gave me that false security that I could do all these things. And then when that was taken away from me, I had no self-esteem at all. So I got help. I saw 3 different psychiatrists and 2 different psychologists. I took all of the medication they threw at me, antipsychotic medication, mood stabilizing medications such as lithium, and a few other things.
So you literally hit rock bottom before you sought help. Is that correct? Would you say? I don't
think I could get any further than rock bottom. It was, and I think that's where I had to hit to realize that I needed to change some things in my life.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm really interested how you turn things around, because obviously what you're doing now is amazing. The fact that you have hit rock bottom, and now, you are a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, and you're helping other women or other people to overcome adversity, which is amazing. So I'm just really interested in sort of understanding, how do you think those challenges shaped you into the person that you are today? And and how has that led you onto the path that you're now on?
Well, a lot of it came from self-exploration. I wanted to understand why I would do things that went against everything that I believed in. I didn't understand how my brain worked or why it worked that way. So I started studying a psychology degree, and I got 2 years into that, and then of course the self-esteem hit, and that was it. I pulled out. But
when
then
you say self-esteem, is that kind of like you sort of doubting yourself again and your ability?
It's that self-sabotage. It's that I'm scared that I'm going to fail, so I'll pull out before anyone has a chance to fail me, or before I get a low mark in an assignment.
So it's that whole fear of failure, which so many of us have, don't it? Some of us so scared of failing that we don't even try.
Absolutely, and that was my biggest driver, that if most of my, I mean, I got predominantly high distinctions, but if I got anything less than that, I would think, no, I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm no good at this, and I would pull out.
And they're just stories you were just telling yourself that weren't true, obviously.
Absolutely. It was my inner critic, and I understand that that's what it does. It tries to protect you from horrible feelings, but in furthering my studies, I went on to actually study cognitive behavior therapy, so psychotherapy and hypnosis, and throughout all of that, I stumbled onto Dr. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory.
Okay, and explain a bit about that.
For me, that was the most revolutionary thing, and it was basically talking about trauma, continuously setting your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, into active overdrive all of the time. But when you understand polyvagal theory, you learn to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest side of things. So in understanding that everything I chose to do after what had happened to me was all about my subconscious mind protecting me.
Yeah.
So when you can look at it from a compassionate perspective, that, you know, I didn't fail because I'm useless or hopeless or worthless. I chose to protect myself because I'd experienced so much pain.
Yeah.
And then when you learn to view yourself in that more compassionate, empathetic way, you actually realize that your brain is incredible. And despite everything I've been through, I am still here because of the processes that my unconscious mind put into practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what do you think the biggest lessons are that you've learned from the experiences and challenges that you've been through? What would you say the biggest sort of lessons are that you've learned?
The biggest lesson I think that I have learned is no matter what life throws at you, it is your perspective at the time that determines where you'll take it. If you have a negative perspective about it, then it's going to take you down a negative path. But if you can find the learnings and the positive in it, then you're going to grow. And I think that's all any human being needs or wants, is to grow.
It's all about, isn't it, the way that you respond to sort of things that happen in your life. But when you say look for the positives in things, sometimes that can be really difficult when you're right thick in the middle of it. So how can people actually do that? You know, how can they look for the positives in those situations? I completely understand what you're saying, because I'm a great believer in gratitude and, like you say, looking for the lessons and the blessings. But have you got any advice on how people can do that when they're in the sort of deepest of despair?
Absolutely. And one of the things, the first things I teach any of my clients is a relaxation technique. And the technique itself helps to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. It's controlled breathing. And that allows you time to think about, you know, am I perceiving the world the way it really is, or am I perceiving the world based on the experiences that I've had? And then when you've got the time to stop and think about that, you actually are more able to respond rather than react. So I teach all of my clients that the first thing they need to do before they speak, before they act, is to take 6 deep abdominal breaths and really take stock of the situation, because perception is never reality. It's just how our brain interprets that situation at that moment.
And I guess is it a sort of like teaching our brain new neural pathways and things, and you know? Absolutely.
So everything we do is based on a pattern, because our brain is designed to find patterns in things so that it doesn't have to relearn everything we do. So in stopping that constant cycle of, you know, see something, feel something, get triggered and then react, if you learn to stop, it actually gives you time to assess the situation and then say, hang on a second, I'm not actually angry about what's going on right now. It's actually a trigger from something that's happened in the past. And it's one of the coping mechanisms that, especially teenagers who are struggling, they don't get taught, and it is so valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think some of this stuff should get taught in school, shouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Definitely. But moving on then onto how these challenges actually motivated you to take the path that you're now on, because you've turned your life around so much. So can you just tell us a little bit about that journey?
Absolutely. So unfortunately, for the longest time, I was in victim mode and I didn't really realise it. And it actually really snapped me into reality when someone said to me that everything that I do in life is a choice. And it's like, well, you know, my first thing was I didn't choose to be raped and I didn't choose to be molested. But what was said to me was I did not choose those things, but I choose how I'm going to live my life as a result of those things.
Yeah.
And that really struck home for me, that my whole life I've been doing everything to avoid being a victim, which means that I just keep perpetuating that story that I am a victim. So everything I've done since that realization has been with a focus on making life better, with making life positive and beautiful, and being able to give that to others, not to get away from what had happened to me, but to enhance my own life. And I think when you change your focus, that changes your direction.
Yeah, I think so, because I think if you stay focused on the negative things, it kind of seems to attract more negative
Absolutely
into your life, doesn't it? But if you can focus on the positive things, you know, look at the things that you are grateful for,
absolutely,
and it just changes everything, doesn't it? So yeah, so what would you consider then, because I know obviously what you're going on to do now with helping other people is amazing. So if you can tell us a little bit about that, and I'm really interested to know, having faced all of those adversities in your life, what you now consider to be your biggest triumphs in life.
Okay, well, the first part is what I'm doing now is trying to help busy mums in particular, because I was a busy mum, is I'm trying to get them to understand and be more self-aware about their thoughts, their feelings and their actions, so that they can make better changes rather than running on autopilot and just following these patterns over and over again. The other thing I'm doing on this Saturday here in Adelaide is I'm opening up a community project where I'm inviting people who do suffer from mental health issues to come in, grab a cup of coffee just for a small donation and talk, because talking is one of the things that really, really helps to stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system, that relax and that rest and digest. So with the donations that we receive from this community project, we're actually putting it back into programs that teach adolescent girls resilience, and to say that you don't have to be a victim of circumstance. So that's the side thing that I'm doing. But in addition to that, I'm also halfway through writing a book detailing all of the adversity that I have been through and how I have overcome each of those.
That's amazing. I will definitely want to read that book. I mean, I love reading books like that of people that have experienced real challenges in their lives, and you know,
yes,
the way they've responded to them and what they've actually gone on to achieve despite unimaginable adversity, because it's so inspiring. And I love that you're working sort of with you know, young girls and mums as well, and making such a positive difference in the world as well, because what you've done really, isn't it, you've turned your pain into a passion and a purpose to help others, which I think is kind of what we should all be here for. It should really be about what difference can we make to other people and what difference can we make in the world. Is that what you feel as well?
Without a doubt, I think that we've gone away from that it takes a community to raise a child mentality to every man for himself. And I think that if, you know, everybody plays a more active role in making sure the people around us are okay, it's got to be a better world.
Absolutely. And I love what you're doing also to kind of raise awareness of mental health issues as well, because I think in the past it hasn't been spoken about. It's been really taboo, and it's great actually to see more awareness of that. You know, I don't know obviously what it's like in Australia, but certainly in the UK there's we've had the royal family actually sort of behind mental health charities, which I think is a really important thing to do. And so I think it's wonderful what you're doing over there in Australia as well.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Can I ask you as well if you have any like daily rituals or routines which keep you kind of in a positive frame of mind, but really with this idea of like allowing you to keep in control no matter what no matter what the circumstances are really, and whatever challenges are going on. Do you have any daily rituals or routines that help you personally?
I do, but it's probably not what people would expect. I like to start I'm an early riser. I live on property in Adelaide. I have 16 acres, so I have some farm animals and some beautiful scenery. So when I wake up early in the morning, I like to have my cup of coffee in bed, and I sit there for half an hour and I look out at my trees and I watch the sun come up over the hills as it touches every one of the trees, and I sit there and I think about how grateful I am to have everything I have now, and I think about how beautiful just the simple things in life really, really are. And I look at every single aspect of my life with awe and wonderment, and I think that starts you out, that no matter what happens during the day, if you start out your day that way, you can come back to going, but I've got all of this goodness. And
that's amazing. And do you know what? I completely relate to that, because I start my morning, I actually set my alarm clock an hour early, because in the UK, it's in the winter, it's really dark when you wake up. So I've got this alarm clock where it sort of mimics natural light coming in, so that it kind of slowly, the room gets lighter, kind of wakes me up, and I get up sort of 6:30, and I make sure that I go for like a 3-mile walk, and I like to do that while the actual sun's rising, because there's just something very special, isn't there, about seeing that. It makes you feel grateful, because it just makes you connect so much more with nature, and the planet. And I think particularly in today's age with social media and technology, people are very disconnected, aren't they, really, from reality? So I think if you can start your day that way, actually seeing the sunrise, seeing, like you say, the trees, even hearing the wind blowing through the trees and the birds chirping in the trees, it puts a completely different perspective on your day, doesn't it?
There is nothing like nature. I mean, if I'm feeling down, the first thing I do is I go out to my animals. And like an example is the other day, I was actually feeling really, really low, and I was being ungrateful, to be honest. I was just miserable because I didn't have what I wanted. So I thought I need to go outside and give myself a bit of perspective. And I picked up my my goat. I've got a pet goat who's only 3 months old. And I thought, this is bliss. I love my goat. The unfortunate thing was that when he was sitting on my lap, he got a stomach ache and jumped up and headbutt me in the eye socket.
Oh no.
And I ended up with a black eye. But the worst part was the following day I was supposed to have a video shoot and a photograph shoot with a photographer for my business, and I had to cancel because I had a black eye.
Yeah, that doesn't look great, does it? Oh, bless them. They do say kind of never work with children and animals.
But if you can see the funny side in it, it hurt, and I was actually a little bit concerned that I may have lost my sight. But when you kind of look back and see the funny side, that I got headbutted in the eye socket by a goat and ended up with a black eye, and then had to cancel a video and photo shoot. I don't know, maybe it's my warped sense of humour, but I could have been angry about it, but I didn't. I chose to see the funny side.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you can do, isn't it? You can either sort of focus on the negative and carry on down that negative spiral, and kind of things get worse, or you look at the funny side and think,
absolutely,
we can reschedule this, and then focus on all those other positive things. Definitely. So I just wanted to ask you as well, kind of in light of everything that you have been through, because you've been through so many things, if you could go back and give your younger self a really good piece of advice, what would it be? What would that piece of advice be? Okay,
well, I have 2 things that I pretty much live by. The first one I have to credit to Dr. Phil, so I hope nobody judges me for that. But you can't change what you don't acknowledge. If you make excuses for what you do, or you're not aware of what you do, you can't get a different result. So that's something that I live by. But the most important thing that I would tell my younger self, which I'm only just discovering, the benefits of now, is that never dim your own light because somebody else is too afraid to turn theirs on. And for the longest time, I played small because I had a very judgmental family. And the minute I stepped out of the box that they had put me in, they would push me back down again. And unfortunately, recently, my mum passed away in November of last year, and her whole family turned against me. And that for me was the realization that my whole life I've played small because of fear of judgment from them. But when I let that go, something that I've held on to my whole life, the minute I let that go, my life turned around massively. So that is something I would absolutely say to myself as a younger child. Don't wait till you're 40 to realize that, you know what, turn your light on and you shine as bright as you can.
Yeah, and I think I love that. I mean, and it's really valid for anybody, because I think that the majority of us all perhaps limit ourselves based upon what other people think we should be doing, or how we should be behaving, or who we should be. Certainly, and also, I think also sometimes if you want to sort of do something which is a little bit outside of the box, sometimes people with the very best intention can sort of put you off of doing it because it seems so it seems so not terrifying, but more like
it's not congruent with what they would do, and I think that's what people try to push onto you, what their comfort zone is.
Yeah, and I certainly, what I've discovered, and the reason why I have kind of started Victress Entrepreneurs and Victress FM is because I've been through quite a few challenges in my life. I've had 2 pregnancy losses, and went through like a sex discrimination tribunal after losing my baby. I've been a single parent trying to manage 2 businesses, and then I suffered a brain hemorrhage a couple of years ago, which has taken me a few years to recover from. But I think what I discovered through my whole entrepreneurial journey, and I started in business literally because of my sex discrimination tribunal, because I lost a baby whilst going to court to fight against the fact that I'd been unfairly dismissed because I was pregnant. And it kind of put me off of ever going back into the corporate world again, because I didn't want to ever have to feel guilty for being pregnant or wanting to have to ask for time off of work. So it forced me. Yeah, it kind of forced me. So again, this is sort of looking for the blessings, I suppose, and realising that sometimes some of those bad things that happen to you kind of lead you on a different path. Because certainly for me, it was like rock bottom. I actually felt like I was heading for a nervous breakdown, having to deal with a pregnancy loss and the feeling of betrayal by being sort of dismissed from a job that I'd absolutely loved by people that I trusted. But it kind of led me to start up my first business, which is the Craft Academy and the Keepsake Guild, which is still in operation today. And then when I was going through my divorce, I really lost a lot of my confidence. I really lost that sense of who I was. But it was actually having my business that allowed me to rediscover who I was, because it forced me to come out of my comfort zone and do things that I didn't think I could do. And I think it's in doing that and actually realising what you're capable of that allows you to grow as a person. I mean, would you agree with that?
100%. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think I would have that strength, the determination, or the tenacity that I have now had I not gone through what I had gone through.
I completely agree with you there. And I think, I'm 50 years old now, and I think sometimes when you're going through the worst adversity and you're in the deepest of despair, everything seems so dark and you can't possibly imagine why is this happening to you. But it's really kind of deciding how you respond to those challenges. And then I think looking back, as I am now on my life, and I look back and I don't feel bad about, a lot of the things that have happened to me, because I think, okay, that I took a lesson from that. I learned something from that. And actually that took me on a new path, the path that I'm now on. And
that's the power, I think, is realizing that instead of being in that moment and say, why is this happening to me? It's looking at it and saying, okay, I think it's where that faith comes into, whether you believe in God or whether you believe in the universe. It's saying, okay, the universe has got a different plan for me, and it's trying to teach me something that I need to grow into. And that's how I used all of my experiences. Like the day that my mum passed away, the morning I got the call, I was actually on the way to the vets to have my other pet, beloved goat, euthanized. And I had to make a decision. Do I take my goat to the vet and have her put down, peacefully, or do I go to my mum? And the first thing I did was I yelled at the universe, what do you want from me? But it wasn't until afterwards where I could look back and say, everything that happened, as sad as I am from losing my mum, and the grief that I still feel, and the grief that I feel over losing a beloved pet, it has given me this fire in my belly to just make a difference to the world. And it has done so much good from something negative. And a lot of people struggle to understand that.
Yeah, and I think that's really, for me, that's kind of like the definition of Victress. And the reason that I obviously have started Victress Entrepreneurs and Victress FM is because I do want to inspire women that we do have the choice of deciding whether we want to be the victim or victress of our own lives. And sometimes we can kind of use the adversities in our lives and turn it to our advantage, learn from those experiences, and actually use the power of the pain sometimes as an energy to propel us forward, because that's certainly what I've done in my life, and it sounds like you have done the same too.
Very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to have to draw to a close, and I've absolutely loved speaking to you, but if people want to find out more about you and your community projects and also how people can get in contact with you if they would like sort of any help or anything, how can people reach out to you and connect with you?
Absolutely. So my business is called Resolved Wellness and Behaviour Centre, and I'm on Facebook. I don't have a website because I very much disagree with the current way of marketing and stuff like that. I like to find my own path. So I have a Facebook page, and as I said, it's Resolved Wellness and Behaviour Centre. I'm also currently running a GoFundMe campaign so that I can get my book published, and you can find that on the GoFundMe site, and it's Trauma to Triumph, Overcoming Adversity. And as far as the mental health community project is concerned, that is called the Human Bean Project, and bean spelt BEAN as in coffee bean. And that is also on Facebook.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll make sure that we put all of that information in the show notes so that people can connect with you and find out more about you. But one final thing before we go, do you have any advice for listeners that are perhaps struggling with a particular area of their life at the moment, who want to make a change that will move them from victim to victress? If you do, what's the piece of advice that you would give them?
I do have a piece of advice, and it is probably a little bit controversial, and it's actually what my therapy is known for. I have very much a no BS policy, and I think going back to my favourite quote from Dr. Phil, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Mm-hmm. I also believe you need to stop making excuses and justifications for the choices that you make unless they are 100% making you happy.
Ah, brilliant. I love that, because there's no sense, right? There's no sense in doing that, because it's not going to move you to where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that. Well, Kelly, I have absolutely loved speaking to you. Your story is so inspiring, and I love what you're doing now to help other people that are struggling to overcome adversity, the fact that you're helping them. And I really look forward to sort of watching your journey as you move on in that area. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I am so grateful for the opportunity to talk to you, and I think that what you're doing with the Victress, or the victim to Victress thing, I think that is just amazing. That is so much at the core of my passion. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And to you, our amazing Victress FM listeners, thank you so much for joining us. I found this episode with Kelly so inspiring, and I hope that you have too. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about Kelly, please either check out the show notes or head over to victressentrepreneurs.com, where all of our podcast guests are featured on our website. And please don't forget to subscribe to Victress FM on iTunes or Stitcher to make sure that you don't miss out on another inspiring episode. But until next week, stay victorious.
You're listening to Victress FM. Victress Entrepreneurs, for women who are victorious in business and in life.